Hello everyone, and welcome to our RTS Futures panel, Anatomy of a Hit. And today we're talking about Love Island. I'm Kat Hebden. I head up development at Lifted Entertainment, which is part of ITV Studios. And Lifted make I'm a Celebrity, My I'm Your Dad, The Voice, and of course Love Island, which is what we'll be talking about today. So today we'll be taking you behind the scenes of one of the UK's biggest unscripted TV shows. Love Island is made in over 24 territories and is still the highest rating dating show in the world. And it just delivered over 100 million streams on ITVX, which was just for All Stars alone. It's still, without a doubt, the biggest show for 16 to 34-year-olds on television. And this summer, it's the show's 12th series and celebration of 10 years of success since Love Island first hit our screens in 2015. So let's kick off with a little reminder of some of the show's most iconic moments.
The series kicked off with our very own superstar Maya Jama, who welcomed 12 sexy singles back to the villa.
Hello!
Oh, wow, I didn't expect that.
Oh my
We got
God.
it!
With red flags flying,
You did message me when you were with another girl.
Maya revealed who the viewers picked as their all-star couples.
Kaz and Curtis, India and Scott, Catherine and Naz, Olivia and Luca, Elmo and Ronnie, Gabby, you have been coupled up with Marcel.
I think he's going to sleep on the daybed.
Night one brought the bombshell of all bombshells.
Welcome back in Sue! You will have to steal one of the boys standing right in front of you.
Here's to an Ekin night. Kidding.
Ek and Sue made her move.
Curtis.
I'm back!
Mr. All-Star himself arrived at the villa.
Not again. I've heard that he's like fucked over a few girls, and obviously that's not nice. I'm just like...
I've never fucked over a girl on the show.
A game of dares got spicy,
yeah.
and lips were officially locked.
And in your eyes, and we ain't even done yet.
Some unofficial triangles were formed,
Can't have a kiss straight away, can we?
I don't think he'll lean in for a kiss to her.
If only I knew something so right.
and we had our first recoupling.
The girl I'd like to couple up with is Gabby. I'm notoriously a slow burner, but I'm really enjoying the journey so far with Catherine.
Olivia.
My decision is Elma.
Joining me today is the team who shaped the show, the brilliant minds who keep it fresh and exciting and unmissable night after night, series after series. So thank you all for taking the time to chat to us today. And I also want to thank everyone who sent in questions on the RTS socials. Hopefully we can answer a good few of them in today's sessions. So we are joined by Coco Jackson, senior casting producer and gallery SP, Sam Carr, casting producer, Henry Byrne, who has been the edit producer and is now senior gallery producer on the upcoming season. Lois Perry, who recently made the leap from casting researcher to casting AP. And last but not least, executive producer Lewis, who has actually been working on the show since series one. All right, Lewis, can I start with you? Dating shows are hugely popular and there's loads and loads out there. What is it about Love Island that keeps viewers coming back time after time?
Very good question. So I think, hello, Kat. There's lots of imitations come up all the time to Love Island. It's an extraordinary feat. It takes so much to pull off an authentic, layered reality show as glossy as Love Island in a fast turnaround environment. I think one of the main things about our show is the cast, and we spend a huge amount of time casting. We spend months finding the right people who are going to be in our opening lineup, and also alongside that, creating format points that generate authentic stories within the villa. So it's a current snapshot into how young people are interacting and dating. And it feels relevant.
And I touched on in your introduction that you've worked on the show since season one. So how much has it evolved over the years? Like fundamentally, from a format point of view, has it changed very much?
it's sort of the format. You'll always come back and be familiar with format points throughout the series. I think in the latter sort of last 5, 6 series, we've sort of made bigger, bold decisions to try things out. You know, movie night is now a big thing where we didn't have movie night. Cassa's evolved. So there's all the recognizable format points. And I think in the past couple of series in particular, we've looked at how do we, you know, make those format points different. So adding a twist to them or ripping up the rule book. And then sort of throw in newer format points. So one, for example, would be the grafties that we've done. So it's, you know, the viewers love movie night and they like to see the Islanders watch themselves back in the garden, and obviously it creates drama, which is great for us. But it was sort of like how can we, you know, you don't want to do another movie night, so how do you change it that you can get clips into the villa? And we did it by doing an awards show. So yes, it has evolved, but we're trying to keep it recognizable as well.
And can you tell us what your role as executive producer involves?
Yeah, so sort of pre-production, which we're in currently, it's heavily sort of on the casting. So the casting team do a great job finding all these wonderful contributors for the show. And then myself and there's 3 other execs who work alongside me. So we will meet, we'll sort of go through auditions that the team have done and brought to us, and then we'll sort of filter out those and then look to meet with cast face to face. So I think we've met about for this summer, we've met about 250 people. Is that right, Sam Cokes? It's about that, give or take.
I think you're looking at more 300, Lou.
I think it's more 300.
We've met 300 people. So yeah, casting is big, but then we're also meeting up with the challenge team, so coming up with new format points and looking at sort of what games we can play in the villa, and what the challenge team can prep for the challenge stage to play during the series. And then alongside that, my job involves speaking with the villa design team. So I've been meeting with the art director, designing the villa for this series. And then also we have a commercial team who work alongside us. So we have commercial partnerships like eBay, Boots. So I meet with them. There's an awful lot that happens. And also we're working with the welfare team throughout the series. And then as we get onto location, which I think we're going to talk about anyway, it's sort of, you know, overseeing everything, but making sure we've got a brilliant team who are running it.
It's an absolute machine. And Sam, you're casting producer. We just touched on how important the casting is to the show. Can you tell us a bit about what your job entails?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of like pre-production, my job kind of like looks over the researchers and APs on the show, and it's about making sure we hit those targets as a team, make sure we hit regionalities of people coming through, age brackets, and then filtering any auditions that get sent to the execs. After that, we kind of like start like looking at meeting people face to face as well, like the execs do. So Coco and I will meet people prior to this before they get sent to execs. So we do like a face to face audition with them as well. And then after that, we kind of like look at how we can present people to the network, how we're going to pitch people, what's their USP. And we put together casting tapes for them. And then sort of like on location, I'll look after the casting team, and we're kind of like across anyone coming out to Mallorca or South Africa, and then across any new islanders, and then we're also across any dumpings as well. So people that basically come to the island and leave the island. And then we're also touching base with bombshells whilst we're on location to see who people fancy, see what they can affect story wise, and then relaying that back to the execs.
And so you've mentioned you had about 300 sort of face-to-face meetings with potential islanders. How many applications do you get altogether then per series?
Ooh. Um,
Has it grown since the first? Do you get more and more every year?
I'd say that the number's fairly consistent every year. Like applications are always coming through, and there's always a pick of the bunch for initial applications. But I'd say the biggest part for us is targeting. That's why we've got such a good team that go out there and look for people online, news articles. We do a lot of street casting as well, so we get out and about to meet people. But in
Yeah.
terms of applications, it's always fairly steady in everything that comes through.
Sort of around about 80,000.
Wow, that's a lot. Are there any favourite islanders that you've cast?
Favorites always have to be Jess and Eve Gale. They were
Yeah.
my first series, series six. So those twins will always have a special place as the first cast. Uh, Most recently, Whitney was a favorite of mine that I cast. And then from the latest series, series 11, Joshua Yinson, who
Mm.
came in fairly late and then went on to win the show.
Yeah, amazing. And your career journey's been quite interesting. I was reading. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so I started off in film originally.
Mm.
So I was at Bournemouth Uni playing semi-pro for a team down there, and one guy that I played with was an assistant director. And it got to my last week at uni, handed in my last assignment, and he gave me a call and he was like, "We're filming a film in Southampton, which is about a 20-minute drive away." He was like, "Can you come down and help for a couple of days?" I was like, yeah, yeah, sure. Thought it'd be a small film. Anyway, got down there and it was the new Star Wars film that they were filming. So was meant to be there for 3 days' work. Got on well with the production team. Ended up staying for 3 weeks, and then met a production manager who passed on an email of a friend of hers, and that was how I got my first job in TV on the job interview.
From Star Wars to Love Island.
Oh, Star Wars: The Love Island. I turned
And
up and there was a load of stormtrooper outfits. I was a bit confused.
I always wondered why you keep saying "May the Force be with you, Sam."
I think it could be a challenge on the next season, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
How does casting on Love Island, does it differ from other shows you've worked on, or is it sort of do most shows sort of cast in there's a similar sort of process?
I think for us it's the volume of people. Like we have to meet a lot of people, as Lewis said, we've met over 300 people for callbacks and then for face to faces, but we meet a lot more people on Zoom. So I think we have obviously it's an 8 week show. We have to have a lot of people in our pool. So I'd say it's the volume of people that we need to meet and we need to have available to us as well.
Yeah. And you obviously work very closely with Lois, and you've just moved up from casting researcher to casting AP. Do you want to tell us how you got into casting?
Yeah, so I've been really fortunate to be a runner the past few years. Well, since maybe like 2018, I started as a runner, worked on quite a few big shows. And then in 2021, I got offered a job as a runner on Series 7. And then whilst I was working on as a runner, I was sort of like intrigued about how the casting worked on the show because it's such a big show and like so much goes into it. So I spoke to Lewis about being interested in casting and sort of wondering if there's any opportunities. And then yeah, on Series 8, he gave me a job as junior researcher, and then I've been here ever since.
And what does like a day look like as a casting AP?
So no 2 days are ever the same. We do a lot of Zoom auditions. I work alongside Sam, help him out with anything that he needs. Sometimes if he's busy, I might step in and do the producer room for him. I also work quite closely with the cast and researchers. So if they need anything or have any questions or queries, then I can help them. I've actually been cutting casting tapes this series, which has been really fun. So yeah, every day's different.
And is there a sort of, does it sort of, you've got casting researchers on the ground doing the initial sort of outreach, and is there a sort of, they basically filter people up to you, and then it gets filtered up to Sam, and then it gets filtered up to the execs. There's sort of like a filter system. Um,
Yeah, so normally they would sort of reach out to people and then send them through to us and we'll Zoom them and then send them on to Sam and then it'll go to the execs.
And what do you look for in an Islander? What sort of personality traits would make a really great cast member?
So great personality is definitely key. Definitely got to be able to hold a conversation, have some good stories, and also they've got to be able to like, sort of have a laugh with us because, we know what we're looking for, and I think being funny definitely helps.
And that just leads me on to Coco. You're doing both roles. You're doing two roles. You are senior casting producer as well as gallery series producer. And can you tell me how those two roles will work across the show?
Yeah, of course. So for the senior casting role, as Sam and Lo have said, like it's very much all about meeting, great people, getting them through the door to meet us, in person, and then getting them prepared for going on to the show. So like Sam and Lois and Lewis, we all meet them, and then it's kind of I then kind of continue my relationship with them once they're in the villa. So I will then be in the gallery, and I will be, ultimately helping run the day. So the gallery is it's a beast. Once the show gets going, it is a beast. But yeah, the two roles work really well because I get to, I guess, start off with them and then
Mm.
continue the relationship on once they're in the villa.
And am I right in thinking every single one of you have worked in the casting department at some point? And so do you think casting's a really good way to get into to see the whole show and get into other roles?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really helped me because I started off, as a runner on series one, and
Yeah.
it's really helped me develop my skills in regards to, just learning how to speak to people and understanding the different elements that make up the show because the cast are so key to obviously the show because without the cast there is no show. But it allows me to it's definitely a great in and a
Yeah.
great way to getting into telly being being part of the casting team really does help.
I think it gives you an eye for story, doesn't it? So
Yeah,
you're always looking for stories through casting, and then stories are what make great TV. So it sort of helps you follow that path.
yeah,
And Coco, you started out in theatre, right? How
yeah.
did you how how did you end up here?
I worked in theatre for 10 years and then one day just decided it wasn't for me anymore and I just wanted a change. And I had no idea about television. I didn't understand quite the concept of it and obviously watched it, loved it, but never, I thought whatever was happening, the presenters had decided to do. I didn't realize that all of the back, what happened behind the scenes and the different roles I just didn't get. So one day I just decided to like try and gain some work experience and was lucky enough to get work experience at ITV and at Jamie Oliver's television company, Fresh One. And that was kind of like my first step into understanding television. But my career in theatre really did help with I guess talking to people and understanding story, like Lewis said, the skills transferred brilliantly for me because I had already been part of, I guess, an industry that was similar but not quite the same. So yeah, my it definitely helped having a career before jumping into the telly world.
Pat, Coco's got a good story for you. Go on,
Oh,
Share.
what's the story?
just
Which
as well do
one?
this story.
Oh God, right. So here we go. So myself and Lewis originally went to university together. So we went to Kingston University and we were in the same courses, everything the same. I then went on to go and work in theatre. Lewis then started his career in television. So our paths kind of drifted. Then obviously then when I decided I was gonna try and get some kind of work experience in television, as I said, got work experience at ITV and my very first day I got put on um oh, what's it called? Hold on. It's the Henry one. Henry, what was it?
Surprise, surprise.
Copy. I'm going to start from there. So I then got my work experience on Surprise Surprise. And on my very first day as work experience, met Henry and was working with him for a week. And then on my second week of the placement, they sent me onto a show called Amazing Grays, which is a brilliant show. Only got one series, devastated. But the first day of going on to Amazing Grays, I turn up and Lewis is at his desk because he is cast. Were you casting AP, Lou? Yeah, casting AP. And it was like we were just looked at each other and was like, oh my God, I know you. I know you. And it was like that. And from that moment, it was like my start in television, really, because then obviously I did work experience with Lewis and Amazing Grace for that additional 2 weeks, I think it might have been. And then I went to go and work at Fresh One. They gave me a runner job. And then Lewis gave me a call and said, look, there's this new show coming back. It's an old show. You might remember it from back in the day. It's called Love Island. I think it might be good. Like it'll be a great stepping stone for you to come in. Do you want to come in and just have a chat with somebody about the runner role? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I didn't even understand what a runner role really was on a production. And when I came in, I luckily got the job for series one of Love Island. So yeah, that is the story.
That's amazing, and like sort of good advice to all of the RTS Futures members watching today is like just make as many contacts as you can. Put yourself out there. Put yourself out in all sorts of different experiences, whether it's a shadowing or work experience, and make those contacts because you never know when they'll be able to help you out and remember you later on.
Absolutely. And also, I think when you gain work experience, it gives you kind of a license to be able to ask all kinds of questions because I think people in television are really nice and people will often give you advice or give you an opportunity where there is one. So I think, yeah, if people can get anything from this chat, try and get as much work experience, try and, make those contacts because you just never know. Like me and Lewis being friends in university, that made a link for me to be able to get my foot through the door. So you just never know, what your phone book might be able to hold for you.
I mean, for me, I filled out that BBC application form for work experience forever, never got through. And then it wasn't until I was moaning about it to somebody at uni in my peer group that they said, oh, they'd met a person who worked on the Paul O'Grady show as production coordinator at Glastonbury. Let me put you in touch with them. And that's how my career started. So it's all about networking.
I met someone in a lift, and then 2 months later, they offered me a job. You never know.
You know?
You never know. So, Coco, before I ask you about your role as gallery SP, for all of us who don't know, what is the gallery and what happens there?
Yes, so in the gallery, it looks like a big spaceship. It's got loads of cameras and quite a few people. So we have our directors in the gallery and we have our story producers in the gallery. So our directors are obviously there because we have all our cameras set up in the villa. So we're capturing everything that happens inside the villa as well as outside of the villa, so in the garden. So our directors and our hotheads are there, making sure that we've got beautiful shots and are capturing the islanders just living their ordinary lives in that villa. As part of the, gallery producers, we're looking out for our key stories. So, things that may have happened the night before that might be, still on people's minds that next morning, and people naturally want to talk about, who they fancy, who they're annoyed at. We basically capture all of that and make the links for, I guess the different stories that end up then in the edit that then end up on TV screens.
And the cameras are rolling 24 hours, right?
Yeah, that's
Do you
right.
have people in the gallery sort of recording everything that happens and then flagging if something exciting has happened?
Exactly that. So we've got our gallery producers as well as our logging team, and our loggers. Another great gateway into television is logging. They are basically the team that sit and listen to all of our islanders and make notes on what people have said to then help the edit. So yes, our gallery team will be listening out and watching what the islands are doing, what they're saying, who they're fancying, what the story of the day is, and flagging anything that might be, the part of the story of the day for those islanders in the villa.
And so, what will your average day look like in the gallery? Do you do prep before you sort of turn up, and how long is your shift? And
so we do prep before. So the night team, I'm normally day. So on the night team, they will obviously have their story, like things that have happened that night. They will write us up a little kind of, brief as to, the headlines of the night before. So then my research would be doing, finding out what happened the night before, and figuring out actually what was the chat of the night before and what could still be playing on people's minds.
Yeah.
People annoyed at each other. Was there a new bombshell that's just walked in? What are people feeling? What are people thinking? So I kind of draft like a little plan of what I think could happen the next day.
Yeah.
Present it to Lois and the other execs as to, a recap of what happened the night before and what could be the potential chat of the day. And then once, we think that could be the shapings of the day, I'd relay that back to the gallery team just so that we kind of have a steer as to, what we're looking out for.
Yeah.
And then the main task of the day is trying to make sure everything stays on schedule, obviously, and, making sure that, we don't, I guess, miss anything that's key.
Yeah.
Because once you miss one bit of somebody being like saying, oh, I fancy him, or I don't really like him anymore, or her, then you kind of missed your opportunity. So it's really important that we're always, all of the team are listening constantly and watching, figuring out where people are, because the islanders, they just move everywhere.
And then sort of working out what makes it into the edit, which is a really nice place to bring Henry in. Your edit producer. Can you tell us what that role involves?
Yeah, sure. So edit producers essentially work alongside editors, and they work through all the footage that is shot, and they pull together the best bits to create what ultimately you see on the show. So the editors sort of have the technical skills and also the sort of the storytelling skills to help you sort of transform the footage into the polished show. So as an actual edit producer, you'll be also involved in sort of scripting voiceover, choosing music for the scenes, finding wide shots and more sort of geographical shots, or finding additional, content to support the scene. So for example, in the context of Love Island, you might be looking through Beach Hut, and trying to find those key moments from Beach Hut to support what's been actually shot and happened in the villa.
And just to explain what Beach Hut is, it's sort of the room where they do their MIBs, their piece to camera interviews, and sort of either relay how they're feeling currently or how they're feeling about something that's happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Love Island is fast turnaround, as Lewis mentioned earlier. What does that mean? How long does it take from what you see? How quickly do you get on in an episode what you've seen?
So usually it's sort of 24-hour turnaround. So what happens today, you'll see tomorrow night, which is different to many other shows. Some shows may be in the edit for months or, for weeks. But Love Island, there is that 24-hour period to turn stuff around. And obviously it's a massive machine and lots of people involved in making it happen. Whether it's loggers, transcribing the gallery through to the gallery producers to the edit. So it's a big machine and very collaborative amongst all of those people to turn it around.
And I suppose this is a question for all of you, really. It's a question someone put it on social, is how and when do you decide which storylines to focus on?
So we will, it's kind of what's happening in the villa. We're led obviously by everything that happens in the villa and what's authentic. And then it's all about, you've got your A, B, C stories. That's sort of how we categorize it. And then it's choosing to go with your A story because that is the main story. And, whatever is happening, it might be a blossoming relationship, but there's drama involved. which peters out to the rest of the villa. So that's sort of like your A story, which is going to carry you through. And then you've got B stories, which are sort of bubbling or being resolved. And then your C stories are really like dipping into couples who might just be having a lovely time and nothing's happening. And then that'll change, as we're going throughout the series. A C story can suddenly become an A story because someone has said the wrong thing to someone. Yeah, so it's we decide basically as it's happening.
And you talked about A, B, and C stories. What's your process for sort of tracking those multiple story lines at once? Is it just having do you have producers on each of those storylines as they unfold?
Yeah, so we'll have a sort of, as Coco mentioned, every morning me and the team will chat with Coco about where we think stories are going to go. And then from that, Coco and her team you've got your story producers, so you'll have like two story producers. It's sort of easier to say that each story producer takes story A, story B. They then get written up onto an EDL, which goes over to the edit, and then the edit have lists of stories that have happened, and it's sort of then the series producer's job in the night to sort of pick which stories are of interest or are going somewhere, and there's a story thread that will follow through to the next day. So we track them by communication really, and all talking to each other in the various departments.
And it's very much a 24-hour process. So there's lots of Henry, I guess you and your team are doing overnight shifts as well to get stuff ready in time for it to go out. How I was wondering actually how much you rely on format to drive the story or and to shape it. Do you have any involvement in that, or do you sort of almost let it unfold, which I suppose is one of the reasons that Love Island feels very authentic?
He's sort of letting things unfold, but then using format to your advantage. If sometimes things can sort of start to get calmer, and everyone's in the right place. But Love Island is the place to be tested, right? So that's when we'll bring in the format points and, use challenges, use games like couple goals to sort of encourage more story and drive that story. And, even putting in a new bombshell helps create stories. So
Yeah.
if there's a quieter day in the villa because the couples are sort of, just getting on and living their best life, then we'll use a bit of format.
Just on holiday, basically.
Yeah.
And then so Henry, are you cutting a lot of stories that don't make it into the show then? Are you sort of following stuff and then we decide actually there's a bigger story that's just unfolding. Let's spend more time on that in this episode.
Yeah, stuff does sort of overtake. Last time I was on the night shift, so you sort of pull together the initial sort of first draft of the episode overnight. And then Lewis and the execs will have a watch of it in the morning, and the day team take over. So, during that time, other stuff may have happened. There may be sort of greater A stories which take stuff out. But yeah, it's constantly sort of evolving and changing as the shifts go through.
And I read that you, like Coco, you started out in theatre as well.
Yeah, I was actually at drama school. I went for a couple of years, and I essentially used to really just want to work on X Factor. I didn't really know anything else about TV, but I was an absolute huge fan, and managed to get a couple of days work experience, which turned into a few weeks as a runner, and it sort of snowballed from there. But it was sort of my love of X Factor, which pulled me to TV. But I had very little idea about any roles within the
Hmm.
industry. I just really wanted to work on that show.
Do you need to train as a editor in order to be an edit producer, or is it just a really good understanding of the process?
Yeah, just a really good understanding of the process. I think some people go into it with, like a technical understanding of Avid or Adobe, which they may have learned at uni, but I didn't gain those skills at uni. I literally sort of gained them on the job. And it ties back into, starting out in casting because Lewis and a couple of other people over the years, taught me how to use Adobe, for just sort of cutting the basics on casting tapes. and then that obviously builds up. So I feel like you sort of gain a lot of the skills actually on the job.
Um, and I had a question here on social, which is actually, I suppose, to all of you, is what do you find the biggest challenge behind the scenes, I guess, with your roles? Maybe I'll ask Coco first.
I think for me in the gallery, it will be keeping up with you, making sure that everybody is keeping up with the stories because you want to make sure that you kind of that you've got everything that you need. Um, so sometimes that can be a challenge, as I say, like we are running the day in that villa and
Yeah.
just making sure that that day goes to, goes
Yeah.
to plan in regards to our timings and also getting the islanders ready. They do take a long time.
Mhm.
Yeah, we crushed those 3 hours into 30 seconds. And so same question to Lois and Sam actually on the casting team. What's the biggest challenges you face, certainly when the show's up and running?
I think for the biggest challenges is like you want your cast to be as good as your last cast. You want to always better what you've done before. So it's all about just getting the best boys, getting the best girls, getting the best people onto the show. And I think the biggest challenge is up in the game every year.
Oh, sorry, my
That's
connection.
okay. I thought I was going to interrupt you. Well, actually, I was going to ask, unless you didn't have anything to add to that, I was just going to ask if when you put the casting together, do you always have to think about it as a group of islanders, or sort of do you look at them individually? They all have to fit together in terms of you can't make a decision on one person until you know who the rest of the cast will potentially be.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, and you've got have like different personalities, um, different types of people, like different backgrounds. So there's a lot of sort of like thinking that goes into each individual person, and you know, you've got to think about will they get on? Will there be drama? So there's a lot that goes into it.
Is there a difference to casting sort of seasoned cast in All Stars to casting sort of a new? Are there challenges and benefits to either of those sort of
Yeah. Well,
approaches?
so it's really fun doing All Stars because um going into a new series of, Love Island, obviously the cast are fish out of water in terms of, they've never been on a TV show. They don't understand it. It takes a bit of time. But obviously with All Stars, they've all done it before. So they know how it goes. They know, things you're not sat there waiting for the story to happen, conversations to happen, because they're literally happening the minute people walk in. I mean, case in point would be when Casey entered the All Stars Villa this series and Kaz just sort of went for him straight away. So yeah, but on the other hand, because people are more knowing on All Stars and they know how things work, the challenge there is to sort of, test, throw curveballs in, um, still make them expect the unexpected. That's the mantra of Love Island: expect the unexpected, and I think we do well. We do all right.
Amazingly. And I suppose a question for all of you, what would you suggest are the best sort of entry level roles to get into a show like Love Island? What's the best way to come and work with you guys?
Shall I? Do you
Yeah,
want me?
perfect.
So I think one great role, especially if you're getting, wanting to get into casting, is a casting runner role. Any opportunities that you see that are looking for, casting runners are great because you're, embedded within the casting team. You get an overview of everything that's happening, and it's a chance to really sort of understand the casting process. In terms of roles in the gallery, a login role is a great role to sort of entry level role, to sort of, you're integral because you're logging everything that's happening on the screen. But also there's points where you're able to just see what's going on, and you're working around lots of producers, APs.
How many loggers do you have? How many have you got? Seven. How many cameras do you have in the gallery?
Oh, it is 74,
Is it 72? 74.
74 cameras.
And then, so how many loggers would you have? Sort of.
So 74 cameras, and then we have 3 streams. So on a quad split, you've got A stream, B stream, C stream. You've got D stream, but D stream's just got your wides. A and B will be the stories that are running simultaneously. So the loggers will then log either A or B at that time. We have 10 loggers, and yeah, they rotate.
Yeah.
So you've got a day shift, night shift.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was an amazing panel. I was just going to have one final question that I wanted you all to answer, was just to give one piece of advice to people sort of starting out in the industry, or trying to get into the sort of roles that you do at the moment. I'll start with Lewis.
I think so. Slow and steady wins the race. You haven't got a race to the top. It's a triangle, right? And the further you progress, the less jobs there are. But to be the best at your job, you need to have experience, gain an understanding. So don't feel the pressure to race to the top. Be really confident in the role that you're doing, and then you'll be ready you'll know when you're ready. Don't feel that, like, don't worry that someone else who you've worked alongside has now moved up to being a researcher or an AP. That doesn't matter. It'll come. It's just sort of persevering. But yeah, it's not a race.
Coco?
Lewis has nicked my one.
Ah.
I would also say work experience. If you can get your foot through the door and network with people, really try, because as we said before, like, you just never know when one little link can springboard you into your next opportunity. And when you do get that opportunity, really be present, really like soak it up, and where there's gaps, and people are busy, and people get that. However, people are also willing to help where they can. So use the opportunity while you're at entry level to speak to people. Just speak to people, because people may have great advice, may link you onto something else. So yeah, network, network, network.
Great advice. Henry?
I think, and particularly if you're interested in casting, it's worth, like, keep a note on your phone of good people you may come across on TikTok, or local family running a bakery near to where you live, because they may be very useful when it comes to working on a show and being involved in casting. So I think make a little note of people you come across who you feel could be good for a type of TV show.
That's great. Lois?
I would say take every opportunity that you can, as a runner, and don't be disheartened when you don't, get a job, because there's so many runners out there. And also just try every sort of department that you can. I started off as wardrobe before I was a runner, so it's good to sort of see and maybe shadow as well if you can.
It's all experience, isn't it? That all helps. And Sam, hopefully they haven't said everything you were thinking of. All the advice has gone.
I would just say it's just about being proactive and present. Like, ask questions, like, work hard. Hard work pays off. And like the guy said, it's not a race, but hard work doesn't go unnoticed. Make sure you try different shows as well, because everything is different. You'll soon work out what avenue you want to go down, whether that's reality, entertainment, documentary. Like, every show is different. So I think when you're starting out as a runner, try different shows, and you'll soon work out what is you want to do long term.
Wonderful. Excellent advice. Thank you. Thank you all so much for taking time out of what is an incredibly busy time to chat with me today. Good luck for the next season. Can't wait. And to everyone else, so just keep an eye out for upcoming futures events. Thank you so much.